Someone is rude to you. Maybe they interrupt you mid-sentence like your words don't matter. Maybe they smirk when you speak, trying to make you feel small. Or maybe, in front of everyone, they throw a disrespectful comment your way. And for a moment, you freeze. You feel it, that spark of anger igniting in your chest, the urge to strike back, to say something sharp enough to put them in their place. But you hesitate, because deep down you know the truth. If you fight fire with fire, you burn with them. If you say nothing, you feel defeated inside. You're caught in the storm, torn between pride and peace. But what if I told you there's a third way, a way the Stoics mastered centuries ago? Marcus Aurelius faced insults from powerful senators who tried to humiliate him in public. Epictetus was treated cruelly by his masters. Seneca walked among people plotting his downfall, yet none of them lost control. They didn't answer rudeness with rage or silence. They responded with something far greater: calm strength. The kind of composure that exposes the other person's weakness without saying a word. Today, on Stoic Sage Academy, I'll show you 7 Stoic methods to deal with rudeness like a true master, to protect your dignity, silence arrogance, and stay unshakably calm no matter what. And when we get to method number 4, you'll discover a response so powerful it can turn public disrespect into quiet admiration. By the end of this video, you won't just know how to stay calm, you'll know how to command respect without losing control. If you're ready to rise above provocation and become untouchable in the face of disrespect, subscribe and let's begin. The first method is both the simplest and the most powerful. When someone is rude to you, when they interrupt, dismiss, or try to humiliate you, pause for 3 to 5 seconds. Don't rush to defend yourself. Don't explain. Don't react. Just stop. Look at them with calm, steady eyes, and let silence do the talking. Because that silence, that stillness, is not weakness. It's control. Rudeness feeds on reaction. It's an invitation to chaos. They expect you to flinch, to stumble, to fire back with emotion. But when you don't play their game, when you remain calm and composed instead of reacting, you break their rhythm. You take away the fuel that powers their disrespect. Suddenly, the silence becomes heavy. They start to feel it, the weight of their own behavior. The people around them feel it too. And in that uncomfortable space, their rudeness becomes visible to everyone, including themselves. You're not saying a single word, but your presence speaks volumes. It says, "Your words cannot reach my peace." It says, "Your lack of control does not deserve my energy." And without uttering a sound, you've already won. Here's how to use it. The next time someone throws a rude comment your way, don't react immediately. Pause. Count slowly to 3 in your mind. Then look directly at them, not with anger, not with disdain, just calm, unwavering observation. Let them feel the silence they created. Watch what happens next. Most people will fold under that silence. They'll either backtrack awkwardly, trying to justify what they said, or they'll double down, becoming even more flustered. Either way, they expose themselves. I once knew someone who tried this in a meeting. They were in the middle of presenting an idea when a colleague interrupted them mid-sentence with a sarcastic, dismissive comment. Instead of snapping back or retreating, they paused. They simply looked at the interrupter, calm, steady, completely unshaken, for 4 silent seconds. The room went still. You could almost feel the tension hanging in the air. The interrupter began to squirm, his confidence cracking. Then he started backpedaling. "Well, I didn't mean it like that. I just thought maybe we should..." He was fumbling, trying to fill the silence he had created. And the person who was interrupted? They didn't say a single word until he finished talking. Then, with complete composure, they simply replied, "Thank you," and continued presenting. The energy in the room shifted. Everyone could feel who had the real power. The one who stayed calm while the rude man unraveled. They earned more respect in those few seconds of silence than they ever could have with an argument. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote that silence can be stronger than speech, that sometimes the most powerful reply is none at all. Because when you meet rudeness with stillness, you are not being passive. You are being powerful. You are showing that their words cannot touch your peace. Marcus would remind us, composure in the face of disrespect speaks louder than any comeback. The person who can stand calmly in the middle of tension, unshaken, unbothered, and silent, has mastered themselves. And that mastery leaves others speechless, not because you crush them with words, but because your calm revealed their chaos. 3 to 5 seconds of calm eye contact. No reaction, no defense, just presence. That alone stops rudeness in its tracks, because rudeness cannot survive without reaction. Silence exposes, but the next method takes it even further. It fills that silence with something so disarming the rude person won't know what hit them. Method 2. Agree with obvious exaggeration to disarm. This method sounds almost like a paradox, but it's one of the most brilliant Stoic techniques ever created. When someone tries to insult you, don't fight back, don't defend, don't argue. Instead, agree with them, but in a way that's so exaggerated, so obviously over the top, that their attack collapses under its own absurdity. You see, every rude comment is built on one thing: your resistance. They want you to push back. They want you to explain yourself, justify yourself, or prove them wrong. That's how they gain control, not through their words, but through your reaction. The moment you fight their narrative, you're already playing their game. But when you respond with calm exaggeration, when you agree so completely that it becomes ridiculous, you pull the ground out from beneath their feet. You remove all tension from the situation. They have nothing to push against. Their insult suddenly has nowhere to land. Here's how it works. Someone says, "You're always late." Most people would defend themselves. "No, I was only late once," but not you. Instead, you take a slow breath, look at them calmly, and say, "You're absolutely right. I've never been on time for anything in my entire life. I'm practically a professional at being late." Delivered with total calm, no sarcasm, just matter-of-fact exaggeration, or they say, "You think you know everything." You reply, "Yes, it's exhausting being this knowledgeable. I wake up every morning knowing absolutely everything about everything." The exaggeration is so extreme that it breaks the tension instantly. Their insult now looks childish, almost comical, and you didn't have to argue a single word. That's the beauty of it. You didn't resist, you disarmed. I know someone who used this exact approach to transform years of frustration. They had a family member who, at every gathering, made the same passive-aggressive comment. "You're wasting your potential. You could have been so much more." For years, they would fall into the trap, defending their choices, explaining their career, trying to justify their life. Every time, it turned into an argument that left them drained and angry. But one day, they decided to try something different. The same comment came, "You really settled for less than you could have achieved." This time, they didn't defend. They didn't argue. They just looked at them and said calmly and with complete seriousness, "You're absolutely right. I've completely wasted my life and accomplished absolutely nothing of any value whatsoever." The table went quiet. The family member froze. The exaggeration was so absurd that it shattered the criticism instantly. The attacker stumbled, trying to backtrack. "Well, I didn't mean it like that." But it didn't matter anymore. The power was gone. The tension dissolved. And something interesting happened after that dinner. Those comments stopped coming. Not because of confrontation, but because the weapon stopped working. When you refuse to defend, you remove the conflict entirely. Epictetus understood this deeply. He said that when you stop defending against an opinion, it can no longer harm you. If someone calls you foolish and you calmly respond, "Yes, I am incredibly foolish," where does the insult go? Nowhere. It has no resistance to bounce off of. You have absorbed it with composure and dissolved it with confidence. This is true Stoic power. You're not proving yourself to anyone. You're showing that you don't need to. Their words lose meaning because your sense of self doesn't depend on their approval. That's why they're left speechless, not because you won the argument, but because you refuse to have one. The key, however, lies in the delivery. No sarcasm, no bitterness, no smugness, just calm, direct exaggeration, so matter-of-fact that it removes all hostility from the exchange. You're not mocking them. You're simply refusing to give their words the seriousness they crave. If you've ever used this kind of calm exaggeration and watched a rude person's power dissolve in front of you, you know exactly how liberating it feels. Drop a comment below saying, "I agree completely," to show others what happens when you stop defending and start disarming. Because sometimes, the fastest way to neutralize an insult is to smile inwardly and agree so completely that the attack collapses into silence. This next method takes it one step further. It doesn't just neutralize rudeness. It redirects their energy entirely by forcing them to confront their own lack of clarity. Method 3. Ask them to clarify their intention, calmly and neutrally. This method is subtle, intelligent, and surprisingly powerful, especially against passive aggression. You've probably seen it before. Someone delivers a rude comment, but they wrap it in a thin layer of humor or concern. They say things like, "Oh, you're actually wearing that," or "I'm just saying this because I care." Their words sting, but their tone hides behind innocence. When that happens, you don't argue. You don't defend. You don't call them out with emotion. Instead, you simply ask, with calm curiosity, "What exactly did you mean by that?" Or, "I just want to understand. Can you explain what you meant?" And then you wait, because in that moment, you've done something incredibly powerful. You've forced their hidden rudeness into the light. Passive-aggressive people survive on plausible deniability. They insult while pretending they didn't. They hide behind phrases like, "just kidding," "just being honest," or "just trying to help." It's a game of emotional camouflage, a way to attack without appearing to attack. But when you ask them to clarify calmly and directly, you destroy that hiding place. You're not accusing them. You're not escalating. You're simply shining a light and saying, "Please define what you just said." And that simple question puts them in an impossible position. If they choose to explain honestly, they expose the rudeness behind their words. If they backtrack with, "Oh, I didn't mean anything," they admit their comment was meaningless. Either way, the mask falls. I've seen this play out many times. Someone makes a snide comment like, "Wow, you're so confident for someone with your background." Instead of reacting emotionally, you pause, look at them with calm composure and say, "I'm curious. What do you mean by that?" Silence. They stutter, maybe laugh awkwardly, and start backpedaling. "Oh no, I didn't mean it that way, and I was just joking." And right there, the balance of power shifts. Your calm question stripped away their disguise. They can no longer hide behind tone or pretense. You've exposed their intent, not with anger, but with precision. Seneca mastered this approach. He often used questions to dismantle weak logic and emotional manipulation. He understood that when you ask for clarity, you force the vague to become specific, and once it becomes specific, it collapses. He wrote that questions can reveal what accusations only inflame. When someone's words are unclear, and you calmly make them define what they truly mean, you rob them of the advantage of ambiguity. That's the genius of this Stoic tactic. You are not confronting, you are clarifying. You are not reacting, you are observing. And your question does the heavy lifting for you. So the next time someone slips a hidden insult into conversation, do not meet it with emotion. Simply ask, neutrally and firmly, "Can you explain what you meant by that?" Or, "I just want to understand what you're saying." Then hold your calm, because that calm is your armor. And your silence after the question will do the rest. Hidden rudeness only survives in the shadows. When you calmly invite it into the open, it suffocates. And while they scramble to justify themselves, you remain centered, untouched, unshaken, and in control. Clarification is a weapon of reason, not aggression. It exposes without attacking. It reveals without chaos. But when rudeness happens openly, right in front of others, you'll need something stronger. A stoic response that works instantly without breaking your composure or your stride. That brings us to the next method. And this one, as I mentioned earlier, is the one that works instantly in public. Method 4. The thank you and move on technique. When someone is rude, dismissive, or condescending in front of others, the most powerful thing you can do is simple. Thank them sincerely, and then immediately continue what you were doing. No pause, no argument, no reaction. Just a calm acknowledgement, followed by forward motion, because that's what rude people hate the most. Indifference. They crave your reaction. They want you flustered, defensive, and off balance. They want you to stop what you're doing to engage with their negativity. But when you thank them, genuinely, without sarcasm or resentment, and carry on without missing a beat, you're sending a message far louder than any comeback ever could. I heard you, but you're not important enough to interrupt my peace or my purpose. This method works because it does something subtle yet devastating. You're not ignoring them. That could appear weak or insecure. You're not arguing. That would make you reactive. You're acknowledging their words but stripping them of power. You treat their interruption as insignificant, a background noise unworthy of your full attention. Here's how to use it. Imagine you're in a meeting, giving a presentation or leading a discussion, and someone interrupts with a dismissive comment. Maybe they say, "This idea would never work in the real world," or "You clearly don't understand how this business operates." Instead of reacting, you take a breath, look at them calmly, and say in a steady tone, "Thank you for that perspective," or "Thank you for sharing that." And then without hesitation, you continue. Keep speaking. Keep presenting. Do not pause to justify yourself. Do not explain. The key is to let the thank you and the continuation happen as one smooth motion, like the interruption never had enough weight to stop you. I once knew someone who used this perfectly. They were presenting an idea to senior leadership when one executive cut in, clearly trying to embarrass them. "This approach will never work in our market," he said, condescending tone, dismissive smirk, the kind of comment meant to shake confidence. The presenter didn't flinch. They simply turned to him, met his eyes, and said, "Thank you for that input." Then, immediately, they turned back to the room and continued presenting, their tone calm and steady. The effect was instant. The interrupter looked momentarily confused, almost uncomfortable, and then fell silent. The rest of the room took note, not of the rude remark, but of the composure it failed to break. After the meeting, several people approached the presenter, not to discuss the interruption, but to compliment their poise. That moment taught everyone in the room a lesson. Power isn't in controlling others. It's in refusing to be controlled. Marcus Aurelius wrote that no one can truly disturb your peace unless you hand it to them. When someone tries to throw you off balance and you simply acknowledge them and move forward, you are practicing what Marcus meant by mastery of the mind. You're saying without words, "Your attempt to disrupt me has been received and declined." Marcus would phrase it beautifully. Your peace is worth more than their provocation. Acknowledge but do not engage. Their rudeness is their burden, not yours. That's why this technique works so flawlessly in public. You turn their attempt at humiliation into a moment of composure that everyone can see. You show the entire room that you cannot be pulled off your path by another person's ego. Your steady calm becomes your authority. Thank you for that perspective. Then continue, smoothly, confidently, without missing a breath. That single phrase destroys the power of public rudeness because it treats it as too small to matter. The rude person was expecting a battle. Instead, they got something far more unnerving, calm indifference, and nothing disarms the disrespectful faster than realizing their words didn't even slow you down. This works instantly in public situations. But when someone crosses a clear boundary, when their rudeness becomes personal or invasive, the next method shows how to establish firm limits without losing your peace or your poise. Method 5. State the boundary calmly, clearly, and without emotion. So what do you do when rudeness crosses that invisible line, from mildly annoying to genuinely disrespectful? You draw the line. You set a boundary. But here's the key. You do it without anger, without explanation, and without apology, because rude people often test you, not out of ignorance, but curiosity. They want to see how far they can push before you push back. If you let everything slide, you silently teach them there are no limits. But if you explode in anger, they gain the satisfaction of painting you as the problem. The Stoic answer sits exactly between those extremes: calm, firm, and immovable. A true boundary isn't an emotional reaction. It's a statement of fact. It doesn't ask for better treatment. It simply defines the condition for continued engagement. That distinction changes everything. When someone's behavior crosses the line, your response should sound like this: I do not engage when spoken to that way. Or, that tone doesn't work with me. Or, I'll be happy to continue this conversation once the tone changes. You say it evenly, as if you're describing the weather. No edge, no attitude, no emotion. Then you stop talking. Let silence do the heavy lifting. Because silence is a mirror. It forces the other person to confront their behavior without giving them ammunition. At that moment, they have only two choices: adjust their tone and continue the conversation respectfully, or refuse, and the conversation ends. Either choice protects your dignity. I remember someone who used this beautifully. They worked with a colleague who had a bad habit of turning disagreements into personal attacks. Month after month, the same pattern. Arguments escalating into insults, sarcasm, and frustration. They had tried ignoring it. Nothing changed. They had tried politely suggesting professionalism. It didn't help. Then one day, during a heated meeting, the colleague started again. Sharp tone, condescending words, the usual. But this time, instead of enduring it or snapping back, the person simply stopped mid-sentence. They looked at their coworker, calm and steady, and said, "I'm happy to continue this discussion when the tone changes." Then, complete silence. The coworker tried to push through. "Did you hear what I said? We need to finish this." Still the same calm response. "When the tone changes, I'll be here. No lecture. No over-explaining why the behavior was wrong. Just the boundary." And quiet. The silence that followed was powerful. The coworker realized the conversation wasn't moving forward until he changed. He took a breath, reset his tone, and continued respectfully. From that day forward, the insults stopped. Not because of confrontation or HR involvement, but because a clear, emotionless line was drawn and held. That's Stoic power in action. Epictetus taught that we show people how to treat us by what we tolerate. If you accept disrespect, you teach others that it's acceptable. But when you set a calm, consistent boundary and enforce it without anger, you teach them something else: that your peace is non-negotiable. Epictetus would remind us, a boundary stated without anger is a display of pure strength. It says, "I know my worth, and I will not trade it for approval or comfort." You are not controlled by their behavior. You're not reacting, you're defining. You're saying, "This is the standard for how I engage. Meet it, or we do not continue." That kind of clarity leaves no room for manipulation or argument. You state it once, calmly. You enforce it once, firmly. "I do not engage when spoken to that way." Then silence. No defense, no debate. The boundary speaks for itself. Boundaries are your shield when someone crosses the line. But sometimes it's not just a single act of rudeness. It's the person themselves who is the problem. And when that's the case, the next method will show you exactly how to deal with that. Method 6. Respond to the need behind the rudeness, not the rudeness itself. Here's something most people completely overlook. Sometimes, rudeness isn't really about you. It's rarely personal. Often it's about stress, frustration, insecurity, or a sense of losing control that the other person is experiencing. When you respond to what is actually happening beneath the surface, instead of reacting to the rude words themselves, the entire dynamic of the interaction can shift instantly. This requires awareness and attention. You must read the situation, rather than just react to what you hear. Imagine someone snaps at you over something small. Your natural instinct might be to defend yourself, to fire back, or to correct their attitude. That's the typical reaction, and it almost always escalates the tension. But what if you paused for a moment and recognized that the anger in their words wasn't truly about you? Perhaps they are overwhelmed, stressed, or feeling powerless about something entirely different. When you address the underlying issue instead of the surface rudeness, you often bypass the conflict entirely. And sometimes, you solve the real problem in the process. The approach is deceptively simple but requires a subtle awareness. Notice the signs: furrowed brows, tight shoulders, a voice sharper than the words warrant. Instead of responding to the rude comment itself, respond to the stress behind it. You seem really stressed. Is everything okay? Or, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate. Is there something I can help with? You are not excusing the rudeness. You are not saying it was acceptable. You are simply addressing the cause instead of the symptom. I've seen this work beautifully in a professional setting. A colleague was working on a project with tight deadlines when another team member snapped at them over a minor mistake. The tone harsh, the reaction completely disproportionate. The easy response would have been to defend the work or fire back in kind. But instead, the colleague paused, observed, and said calmly, "You seem really overwhelmed with this deadline. Is there something about the project that's stressing you out that we should address?" The shift was immediate. The team member took a breath, admitted, "Yes, I'm worried we won't meet the deadline, and I don't know how to compress the timeline any further." Suddenly, the conversation moved from conflict to collaboration. They worked together to solve the scheduling problem. By the end, the team member apologized for the earlier tone, without being asked. The rudeness evaporated because the real problem was addressed. This is Stoic wisdom in action. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about recognizing that people act according to their own circumstances, struggles, and pressures. When someone is rude, they are often in pain or turmoil themselves. Marcus would advise responding to the pain behind the words, not the words themselves. This doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean tolerating repeated attacks. It means recognizing when the rudeness is a signal, not the problem. Address the cause, and the symptom frequently resolves on its own. This method requires more awareness and patience than some of the others, but it is profoundly effective when rudeness stems from stress, overwhelm, or external pressures rather than malice. Before responding, ask yourself what is really happening here. Often, the rudeness is simply a signal, a call for understanding, a cry for attention, or a manifestation of frustration. When you respond to that, instead of the words, you transform the interaction entirely. This approach works beautifully when rudeness is situational. But what about people who are chronically rude, regardless of circumstances? The final method deals with that reality, and it shows you how to handle habitual disrespect without losing your composure or your peace. Method 7. Limit engagement. Let your absence speak. Sometimes, none of the previous methods will work. No calm responses, no boundaries, no attempts to address underlying stress or need. Nothing makes a difference. The person is chronically rude, consistently disrespectful, and clearly uninterested in a respectful exchange. When that becomes obvious, the most powerful response is not confrontation, debate, or argument. It is distance. You limit their access to your time, energy, and attention, and let your absence deliver the message far more clearly than words ever could. This is not punishment. It is not a game. It is recognition. Some people, through repeated behavior, have shown that they do not value or respect civil, meaningful interaction. After you have tried boundaries, calm responses, and understanding approaches, if the disrespect continues, the relationship itself must naturally shift. Not dramatically, not with announcements or declarations. Simply reduce the time and energy they can draw from you and let your presence or absence convey the truth. Your attention is precious. When they no longer have it freely, the message becomes undeniable. The practice is subtle but deliberate. Engagement is limited to only what is necessary. Responses are polite but brief. Time together is minimized. You are not retaliating. You are not rudeness in return. You are simply withdrawing investment from someone who has shown they do not respect it. I know someone who applied this with remarkable results. They had a friend who was consistently disrespectful. Dismissive remarks, interruptions, condescending jokes, and repeated dismissals. Multiple calm conversations had been attempted. Boundaries were set. Nothing changed. Finally, they decided to stop trying to fix the behavior. Instead, they created natural distance. They stopped initiating contact. They withheld personal updates. Responses were polite but brief. Invitations were declined with vague scheduling conflicts. No drama, no confrontation. Just clear, quiet reduction of access and investment. After several months, the friend noticed and finally asked, "It feels like you've been distant. Is something wrong?" The response was calm, clear, and non-accusatory. "I've noticed our interactions are not respectful. I've decided to spend my time with people who communicate differently. No anger, no guilt, no judgment. Just reality stated as fact." At that point, the friend had a choice. Some people hear this and reflect, realizing the relationship matters enough to change their behavior. Others do not change, and the distance remains. Either way, your peace is protected. You are no longer carrying the weight of chronic disrespect. Seneca wrote extensively about the company we keep, emphasizing that the people we spend time with shape our lives. He understood that not everyone deserves access to your attention, energy, or inner calm. Protecting yourself from consistently disrespectful people is not rudeness. It is self-respect. You tried engaging with dignity. When that dignity was not reciprocated, you withdrew. This withdrawal is not weakness. It is the natural consequence of their choice to remain disrespectful. Your energy is finite. Your peace is valuable. Spend it where it is respected. Reduce engagement quietly. Let the absence speak. And if asked, directly respond simply, "I choose to spend my time with people who communicate respectfully." No argument, no debate, just calm, unshakable reality. These 7 methods are not about winning arguments, humiliating others, or proving someone wrong. They are about maintaining your dignity, your composure, and your inner peace, no matter how others behave. That is the true Stoic power. You cannot control their words, their tone, or their actions, but you always have complete control over whether their rudeness touches you, influences you, or steals your calm. Marcus Aurelius faced open disrespect from senators. Epictetus endured cruelty from those in power. Seneca navigated betrayal and manipulation in the court. Yet all 3 walked through these challenges with composure so unshakable, so commanding, that their detractors were left powerless. They did not rely on aggression to prove a point, nor on silence to escape. They relied on calm, clarity, and measured responses, revealing the other person's chaos while protecting their own peace. Begin with the method that fits your situation. Whether it's the 3 to 5 second pause, the clarifying question, the calm acknowledgement, or the firm boundary, each practice is an act of self-respect. When you refuse to give rude people the reaction they crave, you strip them of their power entirely. You reclaim the energy they try to hijack and transform it into your own strength. If these 7 methods have shown you practical ways to navigate rudeness with dignity, composure, and Stoic wisdom, subscribe to Stoic Sage Academy for more strategies to master yourself in the face of difficult people. And if this video helped you see that calm composure is infinitely more powerful than confrontation, give it a like so others can learn that respect is commanded through presence, not provocation. Rude people will always exist, in workplaces, in social circles, even in your own family. But they only have power over you if you allow it. These methods give you the tools to ensure that you never do. Thank you for watching and for committing to your own mastery. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay stoic, stay composed, stay dignified. Your peace is not negotiable. Protect it always.